Welcome to the Drive. I am Dale Lolley. He is Matt Williamson, and it is day 3 here at the NFL Scouting Combine here at the Indiana Convention Center in Indianapolis. A lot of Indians there.
There is.
But
you're in Indiana.
Yeah. Matt got a chance this morning to see the defensive backs.
Yeah,
I like to just walk around and put eyes on everybody.
I bet, especially this corner class.
Yeah.
I was excited
Hear
to
them
ask you
talk.
about that.
The safeties were also impressive in terms of their size. A lot of big dudes.
Yeah.
Just a interesting little thing here. Of course, we heard, I sat up front for Christian Gonzalez, and then Joey Porter Jr. was at the same podium, so I didn't have to move, and I was right there for both of those interviews.
I bet both of those looked the part.
They both very much looked the part.
Yeah.
Two very impressive guys, and two guys that are probably going to be
strongly considered or hope they're there type
you would
of situation.
think that there are two guys that are in that range of
in the mix,
17 or higher.
Yes. I worry, or good for him, I could see Gonzalez going 6th.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's in the cards.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with those guys when they test. And, that's all part of the process here. But they're very impressive-looking athletes. And, again, two young men who handled themselves well on the podium.
They were good on the podium, too.
Yeah, getting a lot of questions thrown at them. Both of them have the bloodlines.
Yeah. People don't know that about Gonzalez, I don't think. But correct me if I'm wrong, but I think his
sister's an Olympian.
His other sister's also a track star.
Yeah.
Mom was a track star.
Right.
And I think Dad plays
professional basketball.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah. So, different kinds of bloodlines there, but certainly, two guys that are going to be very intriguing in this draft. Also, I sat in on some of the safety interviews.
Did you happen to find your boy Brian Branch at all?
I didn't see him over there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was curious how I'm sure he came across well, but I didn't hear anything.
But I heard a lot of the different safeties. The Penn State Jair Brown.
Yeah, it's a big week for him.
It's like 17 takeaways in college.
I know, really productive.
Yeah.
I'm warming up to him a lot too. The more I find out about him.
Yeah, so there's a lot to like there. This secondary class I think is really intriguing.
Yeah, I think you get a lot of help here. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if they took two guys from the secondary, somewhat high. In
fact, I was listening to Sidney Brown's interview, the Illinois kid, and
people rave about him as a human being, him and his brother. Yeah,
and somebody yelled out, "Some of the comps on you are Troy Polamalu."
Oh, really?
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, that's nice. That's as good as any. Speaking of which, I just heard that Branch patterns his game after Troy.
Yeah.
He said Troy and Cam Chancellor were two of his favorites,
Yeah. So
I think he's a little more versatile. Well, Troy's pretty versatile.
Yeah.
Cam Chancellor.
But more than just a box guy.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you have to be at that position now in today's NFL.
Playing near the
you
line
better
of
be able to,
amongst other things.
Yeah. Line up in the slot and
sure.
cover receivers, not just a tight end.
Oh, yeah. You're going to get the Welkers and Ingrams and all those guys and stuff like that, too.
It's the
and
beauty
everyone
of
in
it.
between, yeah.
Yeah, it's the beauty of what they're doing in the college game, and you see it trickling down to the NFL here because, again, you have to be able to defend the spread offenses in college.
Oh, yeah, and not to mention that there's great running backs. Running backs get used a lot more in the passing game in the league than they do up there. Tight ends as well. There's receivers galore. I mean, you mentioned at college level, you'll see a lot of 4 wide. The hash marks are so strange that sometimes you have that huge wide area of the field you have to defend. Like, boy, I got a lot of area to cover here.
Yeah. Just to correct one thing, we talked yesterday about how the on-field stuff would start yesterday. Well, it actually starts tonight.
Yeah, we screwed up.
We screwed it up.
Yeah.
We do make mistakes here every once in a while. And there's just so much going on.
It's coming on in an hour.
Right.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep track of everything that's happening out here. I do know that the Steelers are scheduled to have some guys on the field working some of their coaching staff. So Carl Dunbar is going to be working with the defensive linemen.
Good. Okay.
Grady Brown is going to be working with the defensive backs.
Okay.
Frisman Jackson will be working with the wide receivers. And then they'll have some offensive line work there possibly as well. So
good. Okay. I don't think it's nearly the advantage it is like at the Senior Bowl where you spend the whole week with them and behind the scenes. But still, you're going to hear things under your breath or, be right there next to them. It's certainly an advantage.
Well, here's what I want to see. First of all, you want to see how they move on field. And you're going to get that look. How do they interact with the other guys?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Who's the alpha dog? Who's the alpha of the alphas?
Who wants to stop run to the front of the line and who everyone kind of responds to or cheer, gets everyone moving? Because energy's a big thing there. Of course, they're revved up, but they've had a long week before they finally get on the field.
Well, think about how long the day is before you get on the field to work out.
I know. It's almost unfair.
Like, you don't get to sleep in here.
No. And at least they're not starting drills at 6 or 7 at night. At least it's 3 now. It's a little bit better, but still, that's a long day. It's not like, hey, I'm going to go take a nap at noon. No, they don't let you do that.
Yeah. So we'll see some of the defensive linemen get out there tonight. I think it's going to be interesting. And then I guess tomorrow we'll get to see the defensive backs.
Yeah, all the safeties and corners.
Yeah. So it's going to be, things start to heat up. I think the quarterbacks are slated to get here and talk tomorrow.
Oh, okay. That's obviously a highlight.
Yeah. And then they'll do their on-field stuff on Saturday.
But we're knocking out the whole front 7 tonight. I mean, that's a big deal.
That's a big deal.
That's a lot.
Because I think that's in this draft. We're just talking about it a little bit there. I think the front 4 guys. Your edge rushers and defensive linemen, and then your secondary might be the 2 strongest positions in this draft.
I'm a big fan of the tight ends, but that's just one position on the field as opposed to 4.
There's not
6,
as much need.
Right.
Tight ends it's nice having all these tight ends.
Right.
Like, everybody wants defensive backs. Everybody wants defensive linemen or edge rushers.
That's a good point. I think it is a very deep class across the board for the guys, front line, back line. Yeah. That's a good point.
And I wonder if that's because of where the game is going as well.
Maybe. I just think it's a little bit of an unusual corner class that there's so many 6-foot-ish type guys that are all in the top 50 mix.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is, but it seems like a real trend for this one.
Well, I think it's a natural progression because in previous years we've seen so many wide receivers. You need somebody to cover those guys.
Absolutely. And I don't know, I'm spitballing here, but if I'm a 16-year-old, 17-year-old, 6-foot, 190-pound guy, and I'm a good corner, I'm a good wide receiver, maybe there was an easier path to getting on the field at my new college at corner, so I stuck with it, because there's so many receivers in the league right now.
Well, that's the other thing I've noticed about a lot of these guys. You see more position switching and now at the college level. I think that maybe
not only college switching, but there's position switching more than ever. Right.
This guy, I was there for the Washington State linebacker yesterday.
Okay.
Day on Henley.
Henley. Yeah.
And he was a tight end that moved to off-ball linebacker.
Really? That's interesting. I mean, he doesn't look like a tight end to me, but maybe he was a Connor Hayward type.
Right.
Right. I've mentioned this many times, but like a trick in recruiting we used to do is bring in 5 running backs in a class, and one of them was like 190 pounds, but he ran a 4.3. Well, he might be a corner or safety. One of them's 230. Well, he might be my next linebacker. So they were always the best players on the field. Just bring in a bunch of athletes that are good football players, and maybe you teach them later.
Yeah. So, Wes almost stepped in front of the camera there. And I should say that this week we're giving Steelers Nation even more ways to consume SNR Drive content at the annual Scouting Combine. You can listen to us live here each day from 2 to 4 p.m. on SNR. You can also get our programs, as usual, on demand where you get all your favorite podcasts. But this week you can also watch us.
Yeah.
Hello.
How about that?
We're
this will be the last day for that, though.
This will be the last day for that. Our shows, you can listen to or watch the show here on radio each day on the Steelers YouTube channel. That's live on SNR through our podcast and on the Steelers YouTube page. And again, if you haven't checked out the Steelers YouTube page, if you haven't subscribed to that,
jump on that now.
You got to get on that now and make sure you subscribe to the Steelers YouTube channel. Lots of good video stuff there. Looks back, looks forward. Interviews with current players, former players, all kinds of good stuff on there.
Wes was getting a kick out of earlier. I guess that there's been a lot of photos of current Steelers at their combine.
Yeah.
Kind of a throwback thing and how much younger they look, and you don't know what team they're going to at that point.
Yeah.
And interesting stuff.
That's always fun. We'll be watching the workouts tonight.
Heavily.
And then you kind of sit there and you think, that guy looks like a Steeler.
Yeah, fits the mold.
Fits the mold. And, that's one of the things we keep an eye on as we sit here. The workouts are more open this year. Like, if we wanted to go over and watch the workouts in the stadium, we could do so.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm so inclined.
No, I'm not either.
I think I'd rather do it and watch it on TV. That's what I'm used to.
Right. No, I wouldn't mind being there. It's so I'm recording them all at home. I'll fast forward through them all, but I'd love to sit somewhere tonight and just watch them on TV and react organically and see how it goes, Right.
Yeah.
And maybe have a fine meal or two.
Have something to eat while you sit down and watch it. And watch it at your leisure.
Indeed.
Yes.
And then when I get home, I'll grind it,
Yeah. Should mention as well that our triple takes will start next week.
Right.
Our triple.
I think I'm going to write my running backs up tonight.
I hope you do, so you can send it to me and I can merge all that stuff together.
My quarterbacks are done. I'm thinking to do my running backs when we're done here.
I have Mike Pursuit as quarterbacks and running backs
he beat me.
on my laptop right now. I have mine on there as well.
Okay.
I'm just waiting on you.
Okay. I was waiting on combine heights and weights, but I guess we can always fill them in afterwards. So
right.
I'm not trying to brag, but I've had my quarterbacks done for like a week and a half. Should have sent them in.
Look at you.
I don't love the class, by the way.
No, I'm not a huge fan of the quarterback class.
No.
I got to tell you.
I think I'll be a lot higher on the running backs. I think that's a good group.
Yeah. Figuring out the top 5 there.
There's a lot more to pick from.
I think we're going to have a little more variance there too.
Yeah, we may not have the same order, but I bet we have the same 5 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Maybe McKee's in there. He isn't for me, but I think the top 5 are pretty set.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting in some of these, like when we do our top 5 edge rushers.
Right.
All 5 of those guys are going to go in the first round.
All 5 of those, yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to think of maybe corners as well.
Corners is probably similar, yeah.
Usually that's receivers. I don't know if it'll go 5 deep that are in the top 40 mix.
Yeah.
Maybe 4, that are guaranteed in that neighborhood.
Well, all 5 quarterbacks go in the first round.
No, Herndon won't. Herndon Hooker's my 4. Herndon Hooker's my 5. I think 4 are guaranteed. And more, I think there's 4 guaranteed to be gone by the Steelers pick.
That's what I was just going to ask. Are all 4 gone before the Steelers pick? Because as Steeler fans, that's what you want.
Mm-hmm.
You want those quarterbacks to all go. You want Bijan Robinson to go before the Steelers pick.
Yeah, things you're not necessarily interested in.
Everybody else can shop in that aisle.
Yeah, and even some of these edge rushers you mentioned.
Yeah.
I don't know that edge is in the mix at 17.
Right, yeah.
So if you could get 3 or 4 of those off the board, that sure helps.
Now you start. So that's the way you need to look at this when you're putting together potential Steeler picks.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take 4 quarterbacks off the board,
right, that leaves me 13 guys.
Yeah. Let's say one of the tight ends goes up there.
Right. Or Bijan.
That's 5. Or Bijan. That's 7.
Mm-hmm. Those are
6.
some of the wild cards.
I can count. That's 6. If, let's say, 4 of those edge rushers go. Well, now you're up to 10.
Now you're up to 10. I think there's a real good chance 3 corners, 3 tackles.
So that's 16.
Right. I think there's a strong chance a receiver.
All right, that's 17.
You know what I mean? Like Jahan Dotson was gone at this point last year.
Right.
As amongst others, and some of these guys are comparable to those guys.
Yeah.
That might be about it, though. Maybe a Torrance.
Does Brian Branch go or safety?
I'd say maybe Branch or Breezy, maybe. I don't think a 4th corner could go.
No, I don't think so either.
Right.
I think somebody could run themselves into that this week.
They might be in consideration, or that we'd feel comfortable at 17 where we thought we'd rather have them at 22. You know, that could happen. But that's what you're looking at. I mean, maybe even higher number edge rushers. The more I think.
Yeah, it could be more than 4.
Or the Murphys and all those guys too.
So
or
again,
Ness, or,
if it's 5, you really like that.
Yeah, that would be ideal, and I could see that. I don't think that's crazy. And tomorrow we might be like, oh, there's gonna be 5. Did you see these guys testing last night? That wouldn't blow me away either.
So I mean, so if you're a Steelers fan, that's what you want to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You want those guys to do well here and solidify themselves as top 15 picks.
Back to the quarterbacks real quick. I mean, we just kind of threw out, we think 4 are gone by 17. I think the Panthers picked 9.
Yes.
I think 4 are gone before 10.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure the order or where, but there's so many teams in the mix. I was over there doing a hit with the Colts, and they're like, we're worried 2 might be gone by 4.
Right.
Which is a really good chance. And then if that's the case, the Raiders and Panthers.
The Panthers are sitting there at 9 going, do we have to move up to get one if we want one?
Absolutely. I think that might be the case. So
it's such a strange difference from last year when the Steelers just held pat and got their quarterback at 20.
Right. It makes it even more unique, that we didn't know as much then as we do now, of course. We thought there was a chance Willis would be the first one off the board. I mean, knowing what we knew then. Put ourselves in those shoes, but it didn't seem confident that you could just sit there and we'll wait for 19 picks to go and be like, we'll still get our pick of quarterbacks. Like, oh, well, that doesn't happen very often.
It doesn't happen ever.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, obviously last year it happened, but it rarely happens that no quarterbacks are taken in the top 10.
Right. And
last year was just the perfect storm.
Yeah, it was. And another thing about this draft is if you look at just blue chip players, I don't see a ton of them.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, that we have to this D lineman or this edge or whatever is just so good that I'm going to pass on a quarterback. So that brings me to like the Seahawks, who I think will re-sign Geno, and the Lions, because both those teams are trending upwards. They're both really young. I think they're ahead of the curve for their rebuild. They both have 2 first-round picks. The Lions also have the Vikings second-rounder.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked. I think Seattle has another mid-round pick or 2. I think if I'm them, I grab one of these quarterbacks possibly, because I look at it like if I'm ascending, I'm not going to be in the top 10 likely going forward.
Right.
I can Anthony Richardson could wait behind Geno or Goff, and so the obvious candidates that don't have a quarterback are going to be in the mix: the Carolinas, the Raiders, Colts, etc. Of course, Houston. But maybe if I'm one of those teams, now's my last chance.
Yeah, I think
if you like one
enough. If you like one enough, that's going to be
just not to take one.
Yeah, it's going to be and the question. That's what makes like an Anthony Richardson,
right,
who is probably going to take some time to develop.
Right.
But you look at the traits, you go, okay, we got time to let this guy develop.
Yeah,
I think that's what Tennessee looked at last year with Willis.
Absolutely.
They looked at, okay, we've got Tannehill under contract here. We like him.
We have a running game.
We have the time to let Willis develop.
And now they have to make the decision, though. I mean, are we going to bring Tannehill back? Can we just throw it all on Willis after the little we've seen of him? And clearly when they needed to win games down the stretch, they trusted Dobbs, who wasn't even on the team at this point, ahead of him. So not that Willis is a failed experiment, but you didn't learn a lot.
Right. Well, they learned a lot. They saw him every day in practice. That goes back to what Greg Cosell told us yesterday. You've spent the time with this guy. You know what he can handle, what he can't handle, or you have a pretty good feel for that.
Right. Like, unfortunately for, like, Carolina, they don't – I mean, other than the human being, they know nothing more about Matt Corral.
Right.
He was in the mix at this point last year, too. At least Atlanta has a real good book on Ritter right now.
Yeah, he played.
Yeah.
Does Washington really know as much about Sam Howell? Well, he played a game.
It was fine.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they can't possibly be confident with what they're saying about, oh, he's our guy, we're fine. He's our guy, he's fine if we bring in Brissett or Baker or something and see how that goes for a year. But you can't have super high expectations.
Yeah. I mean, you know a little bit more about the person.
Oh, a lot more.
But you don't know necessarily as much about the player.
Right. Yeah.
So,
and obviously the Steelers are way ahead in the curve of all the second-year quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Times 1,000.
That's the beauty of it.
Right.
That is the beauty of it. Steeler fans, the Steelers media platforms are loaded with great Combine content all week long. Visit Steelers.com and the Steelers official mobile app to hear live and on-demand SNR audio content, exclusive one-on-one video interviews with key decision makers, and daily editorial coverage from yours truly. The team also has a great throwback Combine workout highlights on current Steelers for you to check out. That's all this week on the Steelers media platforms. Matt, we're going to take a break. He is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on Steelers Nation Radio. We'll be back with more right after this. am Dale Lolley. He is Matt Williamson. You're listening to The Drive here on Steelers Nation Radio, and we're pleased to be joined now by Tony Pauline of the Pro Football Network. And, Tony, this is like Christmas time for you, is it not?
You know, it's probably like the days before Christmas where you got to wrap all your presents or you haven't done any shopping and you're going crazy because
– What am I going to get my wife?
Because literally – and it's funny you say Christmas time because once the Christmas holidays are over, through the beginning of April, it's absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
You know, Shrine Game, Senior Bowl, Combine, doing 800 reports. It's actually like the 2 weeks before the draft is kind of the calm before the second storm.
Right.
So,
makes sense.
You know, Christmas, I guess it's the Christmas, we're doing all the
It's
crazy
like between
stuff.
November and Christmas itself.
Yeah.
When you're doing all the shopping.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because it just gets nuttier each year.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, Steelers pick at 17.
Right.
I want to talk offensive tackles with you a little bit. So, on most boards, I don't know, I haven't seen yours recently, Skoronski, Johnson, and Jones from Georgia are the top three.
Right.
Do you agree with that? Do you have an order? Do you think there's any chance they're available at 17?
Only Jones, possibly.
Okay.
I go
Okay.
Johnson, Broderick Jones. Skoronski right now is on my guard
Is he a
board.
guard? Yeah.
Only because I want to see what his measurements are. I've
Sure.
been reporting for a couple of months now. He may not be 6 foot tall. There is questions about his arm length. If his arm length is under 33 inches, you can forget about him being a left tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some teams will view him as a right tackle. Right now is my number one guard. I don't think Paris Johnson is there.
Okay.
Broderick Jones, I think the Washington Commanders may actually scoop him up before
There's a couple spots
before
that
he
could
gets
easily
to
happen,
the
right.
Steelers' position. The Jets need an offensive lineman as
Mm-hmm.
well. It's going to be if he falls, it's because some sort of red flag popped up.
Okay.
Usually,
Yeah.
He's 6'4"-ish, though, isn't
yeah,
he?
he's a small.
Yeah.
He's a shorter tackle, but he's very athletic. You watch the film; he's good for his own blocking system. He can get out on the second level and take out linebackers. There were times you watched the film this year; he was 20, 25 yards downfield taking defensive backs
He
out
can really
of the
run. Yeah.
And he's a good pass blocker. He's got to get a little bit stronger. Younger guy's got to improve his run blocking, but that should come as he physically matures and gets into an NFL weight training program.
With Skoronski out of your tackle mix, do you have a clear number 3? Or is it a bunch of guys fighting for it?
Well, I mean, you got DeJuan Jones of Ohio State. You got Anton Harrison of Oklahoma.
Right.
Yeah.
Warren McClendon. But it's a real drop-off.
Okay.
There's a gap there between those
There's
guys.
a gap between Paris Johnson and Broderick Jones, and then there's another bigger gap between Broderick Jones and that next tier of offensive tackles.
Like I can't be in at 17 with those other ones.
Yeah.
Right,
I mean,
right.
DeJuan Jones, that would be a major reek. But, I mean, those are still quality guys. I mean, everyone talks about the first round. You can still get, good offensive linemen.
Well, that's the
later
beauty
on.
of this year for the Steelers is they have 17 and then they have 32.
Right.
So they get that first pick on day 2. And when we talked to Omar Khan the other day, he says, I expect in that 24-hour period between the end, or 18-hour period, between the end of round 1 and the start of round 2, that's going to be a very valuable pick. People are going to call.
Absolutely. I mean, because somebody inevitably falls. Or you saw last year, although it wasn't that early, the Jets made a move up to get Breece Hall.
Yeah.
Because there usually is a player there that a team wants, and they get a little bit antsy, and moving up in the second round is not as costly as moving up in the first round. So yeah, you can probably maneuver that pick or auction off that pick and get more draft capital.
Is the 50-year option, since they've made the rule changes with that with the way the money is in that 50-year option, is it as valuable as it used to be?
At certain positions, sure. I mean, at quarterback, absolutely. I mean, running back, not so much.
Yeah.
So it depends on the position. Left tackle, absolutely. Cornerback, absolutely. Safety, not so much.
Imagine if the Giants would use the 5th-year option on Daniel Jones.
Right.
They'd be in a lot less of a pickle as we stand right now.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Right.
Absolutely.
So same question with corners.
Yeah.
Whatever order, Porter, Gonzalez, Witherspoon, are they your top 3, you think, and you're there at 17?
You said Porter.
Witherspoon, Gonzalez.
That's my order.
okay.
My top 3.
I think there's a little gap after them too.
Yes, but not as much
Not
as
big as
people think. I like Christian Gonzalez. I'm not sold on him as much.
Okay.
Joey Porter's got a much better body of work. He's physical. He's athletic. He's fast. He just needs to polish his game. Devin Witherspoon is probably the most polished corner in this draft. Have to see how he runs, if he runs the 40, because there's some question about his long speed. Devin Witherspoon is probably the most NFL ready. You're going to have the least amount of bumps in the road with him, but if he's not running fast and receivers are running down the field past him, that's a problem. Christian Gonzalez, I like, doesn't have the body work. You got some good players after that, though.
I love the corner class.
Yeah,
I just thought those were the top 3.
Deontay Banks of Maryland, who is going to run really well here. And you watched the film last year. The film matches the athleticism.
And he's 6'2".
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just he's a fast athlete on the football field. He's a good cornerback. He's a tough, confident to the point of being arrogant type of corner, which you want.
Confident, right.
And he's got a great amount of upside. Cam Smith of South Carolina.
Right.
Not as polished as, say, Deontay Banks. He's got to learn to make plays with his back to the ball, but he's got a great amount of upside. He's big. He's going to run fast as well. I happen to like DJ Turner of Michigan.
I've heard great things about what he's going to test.
Outstanding ball skills. The only problem is how tall is he?
Okay.
He's 5'10", he's 5'10 and a half, he's 5'11".
But there's 12 good ones in this class.
Oh, yeah. Right. Eli Ricks of Alabama, who's got tremendous upside. And he's got tremendous tape. The only thing is he's played 24 games in 3 years. He started 5 games for Alabama last year. So it's a roll of the dice with him.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of people like Keely Ringo. I like Keely Ringo as an athlete. When he's on his game, he's very good. But when you really break down the film, there's a lot of issues with his game. He gives up a lot of receptions. People remember he played great against Ohio State down the stretch when they needed him to. But there are a lot of issues. There have been issues with his game. Garrett Williams of Syracuse is another guy, day 2 guy. Emmanuel Forbes of Mississippi State. I think he's more of a nickelback, taller, thinner guy. Clark Phillips of Utah, Tyreek Stevenson of Miami. So, you're going to even start at day 3. I mean, you're going to have guys like Terrell Smith of Minnesota, Miles Brooks of Louisiana Tech. You're going to be able to get, and not necessarily starting corners, but I mean,
quality
guys who will play for you, Blue Kelly and guys like that.
As nickelbacks, as rookies.
Yeah. Rush from South Carolina.
Darian Rush. I want to see. I heard he's going to run pretty fast.
I heard as well.
Little rough around the edges with his game, but he's got size as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, teams are going to look at this. NFL coaches are going to look at this and say, "Well, we can coach that guy up. Well, he's big enough to ride. There's a lot of these guys that are over 6 foot that
they do that at every position, and I think sometimes to their detriment.
Right.
Because what happens is in the
take the trades.
Right. And they say, what did this guy do well? Okay. And sometimes they dismiss what the guy consistently does wrong.
Right.
And it's sometimes, especially at the quarterback position, you can't coach that out of a player, which is why there's so many busts.
Yeah.
Do you have a good feel for Bijan Robinson where he lands, and how would you compare him to? Since you've been doing this, the best running backs in their class. I mean, is he Saquon-esque or better?
I think Barkley was more well-rounded. Barkley was a terrific short yardage ball carrier. 3rd and 2, you can give him the ball. Bijan Robinson is a guy who can be brought down at the point by a single defender. He's not going to carry the pile like Barkley did. That said, he's a phenomenal talent. I think if it was 25 years ago, we're potentially talking of Bijan Robinson as potentially the first pick of the draft.
Yeah, right.
If not a top 3 pick. Where does he fall? I have him going to the Buffalo Bills in the 20s. Simply because
they need him.
Not only that, it's not a value position, and there was talk that the Buffalo Bills were going to take Breece Hall last year.
Okay.
They passed on Hall. They take Kerry Elam. The Jets took Hall in the 2nd round to see what Hall did before his injury. So I think that it's a situation where I said with Breece Hall last year, he's a first-round prospect who plays a second-round position. Bijan Robinson, I think he's a top 10 prospect who plays a position that's going to go in the bottom of the 3rd round.
That's still a second-round position.
Right.
Yeah. In terms of the defensive linemen in this class, in the defensive front, we saw what happened with Jalen Carter. Everybody knows that news by now.
Right.
How does that affect him? How does that affect then the rest of the draft board?
I don't know if you guys saw this, but right before we went on the air, Carter's here.
He's back.
He's back. Yeah, right.
To answer your question, how does it affect him? Nobody knows.
Yeah.
Okay. Best case scenario for him, this has got to be finished in the court of law sooner rather than later.
Right.
Because if we go to draft weekend, remember Lael Collins?
Yeah.
Lael Collins, just days before the 2015 draft, he wasn't even a suspect in the case. Police just wanted to talk to him about the situation because there were some text messages. And it struck fear in everybody. And Lael Collins went from a potential top 40 pick to undrafted.
Undrafted, right.
Okay? If there are lingering legal questions about this, come draft day, draft weekend, it will kill Jalen Carter's stock because they're not going to know. You know, there's all this speculation now, and it's just speculation. I think even if it's answered before the draft, there's going to be questions about his trustworthiness because they said that he was shifting his story, and people have told me outright he lied to police.
Yeah.
And teams are going to want to know, well, if you're going to lie to police, what are you going to tell us?
How can we trust you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I've heard there's a level of immaturity there in general, which
naivety,
isn't uncommon.
yeah.
Right.
He's naive. And you see that a lot of times with Quinnen Williams. I mean, when he came out in the draft, was very, very naive, but he's blossomed into one of the best defensive tackles in the league. He's playing phenomenal. Overall, it's good pass rushing class. You've got some good defensive tackles. I think you've got.
Who's your number 2?
Number 2 defensive tackle?
Is it Breezy?
Breezy, yeah, of Clemson.
Okay.
Who I think, actually, in my mock draft, I had him falling to the Steelers at 17.
We've talked about it a lot.
Yeah.
Because I had so many cornerbacks going early.
Okay.
And Breeze is a guy who, when you looked at the 2021 film, he was a game wrecker.
Mm-hmm.
He was a guy who controlled the line of scrimmage and just dominated play. Comes back this year. Story with his younger sister dying of brain cancer. He had a kidney infection himself. I think
he had his shoulder, I think, as well this year. Yeah, right.
And I think he had enough college football. It's time to take it to the next level. So I'm very hopeful of him. I have him as ranked as a top 8 prospect in the draft.
Okay.
Because of what I saw in 2021, and willing to give him a pass for last year.
Do you agree this week is critical for him, though? I mean, medicals and interviews.
Interviews, yeah, but I think he's going to interview well.
I hear he's a high character guy.
I don't know of any problems in his past. The medicals,
I was more talking about the unfortunate situation with the sister.
Right.
And how did that affect you this year?
Well, I think we all. But the thing is,
it affect anyone.
Not only that is he came back to play. Most guys
most
could have redshirted after said, "Listen, I'm done." He came back and played, and I think that that's a positive for him, or at least
Good
came back and tried to play. The medicals are critical for everybody. Everybody, just like Jalen Carter with the legal questions. A bad medical will kill a guy's draft stock.
So you mentioned you had him mocked to the Steelers. I've told Matt before we even got here that he's one of the guys that I would like to see them potentially get here. Brian Branch is another guy that I really like that would fit well with what they do. In terms of the Steelers in the draft, I mean, what do you see their needs being?
I think anything on the lines of scrimmage, number one. I think either side of the line of scrimmage, that's why I had Breeze going to them. I mean, after that, and it could be multiple guys on the lines of scrimmage. After that, maybe they need a receiver at some point.
I think corner's in need.
Yeah, corner as well. So I think like I said, the reason I had Breeze going 17 is because all the corners are off the board. Now, if Breeze goes 17 and one of those corners fall down to him, I think that's something that appeals to him. I do like Brian Branch, though. I had Brian Branch going to the Jets at 13 in my mock draft because Brian Branch is a defensive back who plays the safety position like a cornerback.
Yeah.
He is a guy that you can line up over a slot receiver in man coverage, and you're going to lose nothing.
He's also a hell of a blitzer, too.
He's very physical.
Yeah.
He's fast, and I have Branch rated much higher than most people. I have Branch as a top 10 prospect on my overall draft board. He was good in 2021. He was better in 2022, and he can do a lot of things in center field.
And the comps to Minkah Fitzpatrick aren't a reach.
No, not at all.
I mean, they're
not
definitely comparisons.
You could have 2 of those, it wouldn't be so bad.
No.
So other D tackles, how about Ika? How about Mazi Smith?
I love Mazi Smith.
Do you?
Okay.
Okay.
I'm a guy who thinks Mazi Smith should go first round. Whether he goes first round or not, I don't know. He's supposedly going to test off the charts.
I hear it's like a legend.
Right. I was told that during spring practice, he ran the 3-cone at over 300 pounds under 7 seconds.
That's unbelievable.
Now, even if he comes close to that, that's amazing. But think of how many defensive backs want to come here and run under 7 seconds. When I watch Mazi Smith the past 2 years, I see what he does, the dirty work in the middle of the line, enabled Mike Morris and Aiden Hutchinson and David Ajabu to do those things on the edges because they were in man situations because Smith kept getting double teamed in the middle of the line. I don't think he's worth the 17th pick of the draft.
Right. But maybe 32?
Oh, absolutely. If he's there, absolutely. Ika from Baylor, he's more a day 2 guy. He's more of your plugger. He is your zero technique, traditional nose tackle type that's going to basically command double team blocks, and he's immovable off the line.
But he's not Vita Vea.
He's not a playmaker.
Yeah,
He's not an athletic guy. He's not a pass rusher. He can make plays against the run, but you're looking at him to basically occupy the gaps.
Okay. Who comes out of this as the best off-ball linebacker?
I think Trenton Smith of Trenton Smith of Clemson
yeah.
is a guy you got to look at. He's very athletic.
Simpson.
Simpson.
Yeah,
Simpson.
I was getting screwed up. Right.
He's very athletic. He covers a lot of area on the field. He goes sideline to sideline. I've seen film where he's 30 yards down the field with tight ends in coverage. The instincts have got to be a little bit questionable.
He's a little more athlete than football player right now. Huh?
He basically runs to the ball and makes a lot of plays. I like Nolan Smith of Georgia a lot. Now, Nolan Smith had the pectoral injury this year, played sparingly in 8 games, and then they shut him down the end of the season. You go back and you watch Nolan Smith in 2021 when Georgia had all that great talent, and Nolan Smith was a 3-down linebacker. He could play in space, he could play in coverage, he could defend against the run, and they would blitz him up the field.
He's a tremendous edge rusher.
He was outstanding in all aspects of the position. I had him as a first-rounder coming into the season. Had that injury, he's going to fall a little bit later on than what people think. I think
you're listing him with the linebackers, not the edges.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I know he's gonna be like 230.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's not. Forget about the weight. I just look at the film and the things that he could do off the 3-down game that he has.
Okay.
Which is why I think you can line him up in the 3. If you can line him up in the 3-4, if it's 3rd and 5, you can send him up the field on blitz, or you can drop him off the line with a tight end.
Speaking of tight ends, I'm kind of infatuated with this tight end class. And I know the Steelers don't really need one, but I want one. Do you love the class as a whole? I mean, I could see 8 starters in this group when it's all said and done two years from now.
There were 3 guys at the top of my list. Michael Mayer of Notre Dame.
He's the traditional in-line.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Michael Mayer 15, 20 years ago is a top 15 pick. I don't know that Michael Mayer is going to break 4.8 in the 40 here.
Yeah.
So he's not a tight end for everyone. But he's a tight end that can play every down. Luke Musgrave of Oregon State. That's
my favorite.
Yeah, he's very underrated. He was at the Senior Bowl. He was less than 100%, and he was out there competing. And when we asked him, why are you here at 100%? He's like, I just want to play football. And that's going to go over.
Watch it on TV. He still looked like he was running like a deer through the secondary. Right.
Tucker Kraft is a guy that people should get really familiar with. I think he's going to test off the charts from South Dakota State. He plays the tight end position like a receiver. I like Sam Laporta. Dalton Kincaid of Iowa. I think he's underrated. Dalton Kincaid I like. I know a lot of people think him as a first rounder. What I was told is he may not be able to work out before the draft because he's injured. He's banged up.
Okay.
And I think with Dalton Kincaid, I didn't even want to say he was a late bloomer. I don't think Utah really used him correctly because he wasn't the starting tight end going into the season. Brian Queeth was.
Yeah.
And when Queeth got injured, they put Dalton Kincaid basically where he should have been from day one as a starter.
I mean, he was a 0-star recruit. No one knew who he was. Didn't catch any passes as a freshman.
And the irony is he's going to – he's got excellent size. He's got excellent play speed. He was a guy who was projected to be like a 4.65 guy before the injury. Don't know if we're going to get to see him run before the draft.
Well, our guest has been Tony Pauline of the Pro Football Network. Tony, appreciate your time and always your expertise on the draft. I know you do. This is what you do.
Yes.
And so we appreciate you stopping by. He is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on Steelers Nation Radio. We'll be back with more right after this. He is Matt Williamson, and we want to thank Tony Pauline for stopping in there with us.
Always a fun segment every year.
Good stuff from
right.
Tony. And Tony's,
we didn't even dig into Zeppelin.
We didn't, although we talked a little bit about it
Sure.
Because we were at the Slippery Noodle the other night, and there was a acoustic band playing.
Two-man acoustic band.
A two-man acoustic band. Is that a band or is that a duo?
Not a band.
Well, it could be
They're
a band.
just friends.
The White Stripes were a band. There were two people.
They had a cello and a...
They had a cello and an acoustic guitar.
Yeah, and Rambling On.
You don't often see that duo, but they played a heck of a version of Ramble On. In fact,
we had
a lot of the stuff they played was really good. So this week, Steeler fans, we're giving Steelers Nation even more ways to consume SNR Drive content at the annual Scouting Combine. You can listen to us live here each day from 2 to 4 on SNR. You can also get our programs, as usual, on demand where you get all your favorite podcasts. But this week, you can also watch and listen to our shows here on Radio Row each night during the Combine on the Steelers YouTube channel. That is live on SNR through our podcasts and on the Steelers YouTube page, so check that out. And we're starting to get some results here from the measurements of the defensive linemen. And intrepid reporter over here, Wesley Euler, said that Kalijah Cansey out of Pitt came in at 6'1", 281 pounds. That's a plus for him.
Big.
That's a plus for him.
I thought he would be.
He was listed at 6 foot at Pitt, so you always say,
right.
Is he 6 foot? Is he 5'11" and change? Is he 6 foot? So coming in at 6'1" is big.
Yeah, it is. And I still don't think he's for the Steelers, but I think he's in the mix for possibly the second D tackle off the board. In the mix. I expect him to test extremely well.
Yeah.
His get-off is rare. His interior pass rush has immense value to any team. It's just, how does your scheme fit him? But I thought he'd be lucky to be 6 foot. So the fact that he's 6'1", I think, helps him. In the real world, he's a good football player either way.
Right, yeah. Looking here, it says Lucas Van Ness came in at 6'5", 272. A little heavier than expected.
Yeah, he's a thumper, man. I was watching him the other day. I think there's some Bud Dupree there in that he's just a bully that tries to go through people time and time again, which works, and he has those kind of – power, heavy hands, size, strength.
11-inch hands.
Okay, that all adds up.
Which, big hands.
Arms. Right.
34-inch arms.
Yeah, he looks the part.
Yeah.
I think he needs to refine his pass rush a little bit more, and it's hard to just brute tackles.
Again, if you're a Steeler fan, you want Lucas Van Ness going before 17.
I think so, yeah. I don't think they'd be super interested in him. But if he can develop as an interior pass rusher and develop his pass rush moves, he has a high ceiling.
Yeah. Felix and Duque and
Kansas State.
Ndike Uzoma from K-State, 6'3", 255, 33.5-inch arms.
Yeah, he's a Steeler mold. I think he's a day two player.
He's a true, outside linebacker type.
Okay.
I don't know if Van Ness at that size is
not as much.
More of a 4-3.
More of a 4-3. Can he be an interior pass rusher? Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, looking here, I'm just not seeing a lot of measurements here yet.
I'm anxious for him. We've been here for 3 days.
Look at the Pro Football Network, Tony Pauline's network here. We'll see what they
Tony's always dialed in with that stuff.
He is. I'm looking here, heights and weights. It's loading.
It's loading. Internet's been a little bit of an issue here this week.
A bit of a problem, yeah.
Right. And plus, this is all brand new information.
Yeah, okay, there we go. They don't seem to have – they got a few here. Brian Barisi.
Where's he at?
Brisset. He said 6'5", 298, 10 1/4 inch hands.
All what you want.
6'5", 298 is nice.
Do you happen to know?
I'm guessing he came in a little bit lighter because he was listed at 305 because he wants to run better.
Cam was under 300 pounds as a draft pick.
Basically right around that.
Right.
298 is basically 300.
Yeah. I don't care if he's 300 or not. I mean, he's not a nose. I'm not asking him to do that.
But he's got that length. He's got that 6'5" and a half. He's going to look like –
that's what I expected.
He looks like the dinosaur you expected.
He's actually a little taller than I expected. Watch him on tape.
Yeah, 6'5" and a half.
Yeah, that's great.
Byron Young out of Texas is.
There's two Byron Youngs. There's a Bama one and a Tennessee one.
Oh, this is the Bama one. Yeah.
Okay.
6'3", 294.
6'3", 294. Okay.
Yeah.
He might be a little short for the Steelers DNs, but
he's got 11-inch hands too.
Really? Okay.
Max, what'd your hands come in at? Max Starks had 11.5-inch hands. If you've ever seen, I'm looking here at Max's hands now.
They're large.
When Max grabs a basketball, it looks like he has a Nerf ball in his hands.
11's huge.
11
some of these guys are 11's huge.
I just remember when the first time T.J. Watt when the Steelers drafted T.J. Watt and we were on the air at the facility doing the draft coverage, and they brought TJ over to talk to us, and he shook his hand, and it was like, and it just enveloped enveloped your whole hand. Like, wow, this dude's got big hands.
The one that I remember was when DeForest Buckner was coming out of Oregon, and it was who's doing combine stuff. He could pick up a ruler, 12-inch. That's insanity.
That's a big hand.
Yeah, that's insanity.
That's a big hand. So, yeah, I'm starting to let's see here if there's anybody else. We've got those three thus far. Oh, there's one. DJ Dale, interior offensive lineman. He is from –
Interior defensive lineman or offensive lineman?
Interior defensive.
Oh, okay.
6'1", 302.
Okay. I'm not real familiar with him either.
Yeah.
We'll keep checking these. I mean, there's
Dante Stills, the West Virginia guy.
Oh, Wes is going to be so excited.
6'3.5", 286.
Okay. I mean, as a day 3 guy, I think there's some interest there.
Yeah. Looks like Cameron Young. He's the
other Cameron Young?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 6'3", 304.
6'3", 304. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, they don't designate with the schools here. So
yeah.
Get some guys with the same names
Yeah,
here.
it doesn't happen all the time, right?
Yeah. Looks like Jalen Carter.
It's interesting he's in the building.
6'3", 314
for him. I mean, who knows how that affects him, but it sounds like just his whole situation.
He doesn't
the fact
look like
that
he weighs 314.
No, he doesn't. That's one of the beauties of it.
Yeah, he looks
right.
like – I mean, he looks much more athletic than that.
Like I've heard all these Quinnen Williams comparisons, and Tony even kind of brought it up. And I'm like, Williams is heavier, isn't he?
Yeah.
But no.
Right.
It's like, wow. Right.
Gervin Dexter came in at 6'6", but
Yeah.
he didn't he did not there's no weight here listed for him.
Yeah,
6'6" for
back.
Gervin Dexter.
That's a possibility.
Yeah.
Max mentioned that. Do you know who the Florida strength coach is?
I do not.
It is Carl Dunbar's son.
There you go.
So there might be a little
inside information there on that.
He's an
Keandre
intriguing player.
Coburn, 6'2", 332.
I don't know him.
He is from is it Auburn?
Could be. Yeah. It sounds like they're doing all the D tackles right now, though. Huh?
Keanu Benton from
Where's he at?
6'4", 309.
I bet he has long arms. Just
That's
looking at him too.
9 3/4 inch hands, but that's a good weight for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see here. Oh, there's Jacqueline Roy, the LSU guy.
He's more of a nose tackle type.
6'3", 305.
I thought he'd be heavier. Maybe he's trying to trim a little bit.
I'm sure.
Which
If you're going to run at this event,
yeah.
you don't want to come in at 330.
If you got to take your shirt off and stand in your underwear too.
Well, there's that too. There's always the embarrassment factor.
Right.
I don't want to be that sloppy.
Look good. Right.
Yeah. I'm going to the beach. Let's see here. Maisie Smith.
He's 320-ish?
6'3", 323.
6'3". That's a little taller than I expected from him, too.
So
his drills are going to be impressive.
Yeah. I wonder if I could break this down by position here. That might make it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Well, I can. How about that?
I'm sure they're bringing him in.
Look at me. I'm like I just learned how to use the
how
internet
to sort
here.
things, yeah.
Where the heck is the interior defensive line? That's what we want to see.
That's all it's going to be available for the
I would think,
now,
those
right,
are the guys that are getting measured today. Then maybe some of the edges. Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
there we go.
Gives you a little less work.
All right. Anybody that we didn't do here yet? Maisie Smith. Ika.
How big is he?
Siaki Ika. 6'3", 335.
I thought he might be a little taller than that.
I thought he might be heavier than that.
How big are his hands?
10 1/4.
Okay. They don't do arm length on that.
I don't see arm length on here yet. Yeah.
Okay.
That'll be coming out later.
Yeah.
Zach Pickens.
He's intriguing,
too.
too.
South Carolina, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 6'4", 291.
Yeah, I think he fits the Cam Tuitt, Aaron
Yeah.
Smith mold a little bit. He's pretty active, too. I like that player.
Athletic guy.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what they got here for the edges.
I didn't think they were out yet, but maybe they are.
Well, some of them were. So.
Oh, were they?
Yeah. So you got the Zoma. We talked about him.
Oh, right. Van Ness was already out.
Will McDonald, the fourth, 6'3" and 5/8", 239.
I was worried about he's real narrow-waisted,
Yeah.
unbelievably long arms. He's a really good player, and he has a lot of sacks. He's going to test well. I just wonder if he's a little too slim. Is he a designated pass rusher only?
I mean, obviously, if he's a 239 now at 6'3" and 5/8", he should be able to get to 245, 250.
I would think. It's just his build is so, I don't want to say dainty, but he's got a little waist and he's long-limbed. I mean, he looks like a basketball player.
That's okay. I can put.
Yeah.
You can put weight on him. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure.
Zach Harrison, 6'5" and 1/2", 274.
I hear his arms are almost Starks-like.
Really?
Yes, and that he's a crazy tester.
Starks-like.
I mean, rare for his position. So I think he's somebody to watch.
Yeah, so that's what we have thus far on the heights weights. We'll see how that
we'll check in on that.
here. But the defensive tackles. This class is interesting, and I think the Steelers could definitely add at that position.
I mean, they'll either sign Ogunjobi or they won't, or they'll
even
sign
if they
somebody
sign
else.
Ogunjobi, I'm still interested in.
I still think they draft a 285 or bigger defensive player.
Yeah,
no matter what.
Because if you look at it, I mean, Chris Wormley played a lot of snaps last year.
Mm-hmm.
And has been a valuable guy, but he's coming off an ACL.
Yeah, and he's not getting any younger, and
he's going to be 30. And I want to get younger at that position and continue. Yeah. And more importantly, have those guys learn under Cam.
Oh, without question. And
I wouldn't have a problem with having Cam and a bunch of guys under 25.
Hey, I hear what you're saying. And Wormley, to me, is kind of your fallback plan.
Yeah, you can always bring him back in camp. And
with his injury, no one's going to probably sign him for a while. I mean, he probably is floating out there post-draft or in that neighborhood. And if he isn't,
you could even have a side deal.
Him.
You could even say, hey, we're going to draft one, but we're still going to bring you in.
1-year deal at X amount. I know noses aren't as important as they used to be in terms of snap counts and all those things, but I don't think Alualu's back. And true noses, I think Adams is a 2.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you have to find a 1, but
you
better have another one.
Do you need necessarily, if Adams is your nose,
mm-hmm.
How much base are you playing?
Not a ton, but you play the Ravens.
But if I draft Brisset
and ask him to do that,
I've watched tape on him. I see him on the nose.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't have to put Cam on the nose. I don't want to do that.
But he can too.
But he can.
Right.
But I don't want to have to do that. So if I can take a guy like Brisset and put him on the nose and keep Cam at defensive end.
Yeah, I mean, depending on the opponent that week. I mean, I don't want a ton of snaps of Brisset or Cam or any of those guys handling double teams time and time again.
But you're not going to play with the nose on the field.
No.
60 snaps.
But I also don't want to. I mean, what if Adams gets hurt?
Well,
you know what I mean.
Yeah. But I'd
like to have 2 of them.
You found Adams on the basically on the street 2 years ago.
I just think he's a high quality 2.
Yeah.
In the perfect world. But a high quality 1 doesn't play that many snaps. So what's
that's
the value?
That's the conundrum that you come into.
Yeah.
If you draft one of those guys early,
mm-hmm.
he's going to be standing on the sideline most of the time.
Yeah, if it's
much like Casey. There would be
Smith
games where Casey Hampton play 15 snaps.
Yeah,
because the other team knows you got that guy too, and they're not going to.
It's a catch-22. But if you don't have that guy, then they're going to load up and run up.
You're going to do that all day.
So it's an interesting. How much do you value that is always a balancing act.
It definitely is, and so, I think those lines are getting a little more blurred now too, because that if you take a guy that can rush the passer,
right, and you can also overset that by putting Ogunjobi and Cam both in the A gaps or in the head up over the guards or whatever. You don't have to have line up someone nose over the center snap after snap.
Absolutely. So, Steeler fans, the Steelers media platforms are loaded with great Steelers Combine content all week long. Visit Steelers.com and the Steelers official mobile app to hear live and on-demand SNR audio content, exclusive one-on-one video interviews with key decision makers, and daily editorial coverage. The team also has great throwback Combine workout highlights on current Steelers for you to check out. That's all this week on the Steelers media platforms. He is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on Steelers Nation Radio. We'll be back with Hour 2 right after this. Dale Lolley. He is Matt Williamson, and this is the Drive on Steelers Nation Radio. And, we're back for hour 2 here of our ongoing coverage. We're closing out the day here. That Wes Euler, here to my right, started the day off today at 9 a.m.
Yeah, he's our leadoff hitter.
After our stop at Giordano's last night to ingest massive amounts of pizza.
Deep dish pizza.
The deep
really
dish
good,
pizza.
Right?
Somebody needs to open one of those in Pittsburgh.
In my neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, all that money you're making, you should open one yourself.
I'm rolling in it. It's a free time, too, just to run a restaurant. We could do the drive from there, though, every night.
Yeah,
see if we can get up to 800 pounds between the two of us, right?
It'll be happen real quick. Real quick. But there are lots of good pizza joints in
of course,
Pittsburgh as well. They just aren't Chicago deep dish.
No, it's a treat. That's something we do here every year.
Yeah.
We have a couple traditions nowadays. Tony Pauline, Greg Cosell, deep dish pizza, right? Amongst others.
We can't mention on the air. But, Matt, things really, we're Thursday here.
Mm-hmm. We're finally kicking in, though.
Yeah.
As we speak, drills are about to start.
This has been, drills started earlier than this last year, right?
I think so.
I think we had drills Wednesday night. That's where we got confused.
That's why I'm confused about the whole thing. I didn't think it took us 4 days before we actually saw athletic stuff or heights and weights. I
mean, I feel like we're sitting here going over the same stuff over and over again because we haven't seen anything on the field yet.
No.
We're excited that they're releasing some heights and weights now.
Mm-hmm. And the week's more than halfway over.
Yeah.
But that's the way it works. It works out for me, too, though, being home to watch a lot of the NFL Network stuff, and not being on the air and all that. And, there's only so many hours in the day. But I can't wait to watch drill stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, and I've watched football drills year-round, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
watching all
football practice isn't as exciting as you think, but when you haven't seen one for a while,
I always get that. You get to go to all the practices. Yeah, I get to go to all the practices.
Yeah, it's like watching the Super Bowl every day. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not quite as exciting as you think.
If you see one once every 10 years, they're pretty exciting. But every day, they're not as lighting up as you think.
I do like to listen when I'm doing those things.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I'm not just standing there watching it, but I'm listening to what the coaches are trying to tell the players or how they're trying to goad the players into a little more action, those kind of things. So recently retired John Mitchell was always –
usually was phenomenal.
You just go over and listen to Mitch for about 10 minutes, just like a drill sergeant with those guys. And just
you get to get and learn all their coaching styles and why they work well or don't,
So I when Mitch retired, I called and talked to a couple of his guys. I talked to Aaron Smith. I talked to Chris Hoke about his style of coaching.
Okay.
And this brings me to where we come for the draft here. Mitch believed with his linemen that you bring them in, you break them down, and then reteach them everything.
Okay. That's similar because I'm a big believer. I like what Michael Lombardi has to say a lot, and I listen to his podcast. I read his first book. He's got another one coming out. He had a very interesting, introduction into the league. He came in driving around Bill Walsh every day, and then he got hired with Al Davis, and then he was Bill Belichick's right-hand man. So he learned football from those three men. So I'll listen to Mike Lombardi, and he always says the best defensive line coaches are kind of the opposite of the best offensive line coaches. Not that Max, offensive linemen, are so much smarter than defensive linemen, but it's much more of a cerebral position. However, Lombardi often says the best D-line coaches are the circus trainer with the chair and the whip with lions everywhere, and he's got to get them all lined up and get them to eat the opponent in the proper manner. And best of luck with that,
Max says you never hear of an offensive line group described like that.
How I always hear
the offensive line group room are the ones with the chair and the whip. That's
how I hear the best offensive line coaches are. They're like mushrooms. You keep them in the dark and you feed them.
Yeah.
Just let them do their keep them in the basement and right.
But so Mitch believed that you could be as talented as all get go.
Harness that,
but you got to harness it and get that funneled in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
And in the right, and it isn't easy to do because they've been taught their entire life to do it this way,
right.
And now you're reteaching. Well, here's what we want,
mm-hmm.
and so that's not easy.
It kind of correlates with Jalen Carter being in the news because he's a phenomenal football player. But if the rumors are true about he's immature or we have to keep an eye on him or he loves gaming too much and gets away with all of his immense talent, frankly, he's not at all unique. I mean, that position, maybe more than any in football, is made up of really freaky human beings. Like the 3 years I did recruiting at Pitt, if you looked across the national rankings of D tackles, there was like 5 every year that were, wow, he's 6'5", he's 330, he runs amazing. They all go to Bama, they all go to Georgia, they don't come to Pitt. You know, I mean, we were talking the other day how Henderson and Haynesworth were together, and Rogers and Hampton, and Stroud and Seymour. You know, they all go to the same schools. So what I'm going with this is those guys are the freakiest of the freaks. They can develop so many bad habits and still take the guy in front of them and throw him out of the way and disrupt the quarterback. So the Mitches
they're
of the
the
world,
bouncers in the bar. No matter,
right.
Yeah.
So Coach Mitch probably had to break a lot of bad habits with the chair and the whip before you could learn the 3-4, you know, especially because they didn't do that in college.
So that's one thing. So the Steelers have Carl Dunbar, their defensive line coach now, who trained under John Mitchell. Like he works not just with the defensive linemen now, but with the edge rushers.
Okay.
And developing what we talked about yesterday, that get-off.
Right. I wonder, I hadn't thought of that, but because he does both, does a Leal-like prospect appeal to them more? And I don't think Leal's going to stay outside, but a year ago he did all the above, and he did some with the Steelers. I think his future's inside.
Yeah.
But
that was more out of necessity.
It was.
You know,
it was.
Because
at A&M he lined up on his feet sometimes.
Right, yeah.
So I just think they'd be more interested in those players than they were 10 years ago.
I think, so last year at this time, we're talking about Leal when we did our triple take stuff. He was in all of our top 5s.
Oh, yeah. And he was on all the lists before his senior year, highly recruited.
Considered a first-round draft guy. In fact, I think if you looked back to I want to say it was Daniel Jeremiah's post-2021 mock draft.
Right. Or McShay's or all those way too early.
He had Leal going to the Steelers that year in the first round.
Yeah. So a lot of people had him in top 10 and things like that. I mean, he was a highly decorated guy. There's a lot of talent there. So it's funny. I don't know if we bring his name up enough when we talk about the D-line needs and things. He could take a nice step forward this year and not.
Well, that'll be the expectation.
Sure.
Yeah.
Not that he would replace the Ogunjobi role, but he might. You know, I'm not saying it's necessary will do that. But if he's
at the very least, he's maybe in your rotation on a regular basis.
3 interior guys that are high quality, and Cam gets to play 10% less snaps or whatever. That would be good for all.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, I think that's what they should be looking to do here, because let's face it, Cam's not getting any younger.
No, you need to.
You know, if I can take his snap count from 85% down to 75%.
Everybody's happy.
Yeah, I'm going to get better Cam late in games, and that's what I want.
As well as late in season when you're hopefully in the playoffs.
Yeah,
you know, right. And maybe you get extra year out of him on the back end of his career.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Because, he keeps himself in great shape, and he doesn't seem to be slowing down at all, but I don't want him to hit that wall.
And he plays through more injuries than we probably know and, all those things as well, But, no, you want him around.
So, I'm very interested in this defensive tackle group as a whole.
Me too.
Adding somebody, whether that be in the first round, whether that be with pick 32, whether that be with pick 49, or even 80.
So, who's on – in the defensive line room, it's Cam, it's Leal, Loudermilk, Adams. Anyone else under contract I'm missing?
No, I think that's it.
I think it's 4 right now.
Yeah, because Wormley and Ogunjobi are both
up.
Yeah.
So would you expect at least one free agent signing, at least one draft pick, if not more?
Well, that gets you to 7.
Well, you got 4 now.
Right. Oh, no, you're right. So that would get you to 6.
So you have to get to 6. They usually keep 6.
They usually keep 6.
And then you could do a Davis late-round pick type guy or something like that. I mean, I would like to go into camp with 7 really in the mix.
NFL guys.
Yeah, because one might get hurt or, you know what I mean, or you could trade one, whatever. And maybe Wormley's at 7th and he's just on the back burner until you need him. But I would think you add 2 from those plus those 4.
Yeah.
And chances are it's not both free agents or both draft.
Yeah, I think maybe one of each.
One of each makes sense, right. Bring back Ogunjobi in a second-round pick or whatever. Yeah.
So,
there's options.
That just makes a lot of sense. So, I look at that. I mean, just as big a need maybe as linebacker. Maybe you do the same thing at off-ball linebacker. Maybe you draft one and then you sign a free agent.
Yeah. It's all easy said. It's all easy to talk about today. And you know it's better than I do even is. But those 2 7th-round picks really don't even count. You're not filling in the.
Well, here's the thing about those picks. So I know 17 is not going to move. 32 is not going to move. 49
not going to move.
I'll get there. 49 is going to be 49. 80 is going to be 80 because that's in the 3rd round. But pick 120 that they have right now when the compensatory picks come out.
Oh, yeah.
Is it going to end up being 129?
Yeah.
Those 7th-round picks are going to be 20 spots lower than what they are right now.
Yes.
Once the compensatory picks come in.
But where I'm going with this is those 2 7ths, hey, you have to draft a D lineman. Hey, you have to draft a linebacker. Those 2 don't really count. They will be football players. They may end up being wonderful human beings and great, Steelers forever. But you don't use those 7th-round picks.
You hit on one of those once every 5 or 6 years if you're doing well.
Yeah. You don't make that pick and be like, well, we filled our nose tackle need.
Right.
We got a starting guard. So all the picks before that are what? There's 6 of them?
Before that, there are 5.
How many total picks are there?
They got 7 total.
So they really have 5 picks. They have 5 positions to address as currently constructed. And we want a corner, maybe a safety, a linebacker, a D lineman, potentially an edge guy. I'm lobbying for a tight end. Better draft an offensive lineman or so.
Yeah.
It
doesn't all fit.
It never does.
That's why, to me, that pick at 32, if I can move back to 35, to somewhere in that 35 to 40 range, and still get a guy that I desire to get there.
Sure.
But also pick up maybe an additional pick or 2 in this year's draft, and maybe even something next year.
Oh yeah.
I'm interested.
I'm very interested at 17 as well. You're less interested than I am at 17, and I think it's much easier to deal 32 than 17 because I have 24 hours to do it instead of 15 minutes.
You have more time to work at it, yeah.
But people always ask for first-round pick. I'm just more interested to trade down with my top 2 picks, certainly, than trade up.
I just think at 17 there's going to be somebody there that you really like, and you're probably just going to draft him.
It's more likely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As opposed to 32 where I've got all night to think about it, and I've got 10 teams on the phone, and they're all bidding against each other.
But that's what you hope.
And
I think there's a good
now
chance of that.
Now I can get premium picks out of it and say, oh, hey, because 32 is 32. 32 in every other year is a first-round draft pick.
But I also envision a scenario where you and I go home, and there's a text on my phone when I wake up saying, I've been thinking about this all night, and I can't believe this guy's available at 32. You just take him.
There'll be,
you know what I mean?
I bet you, because we'll do a list of the best remaining available guys. There's going to be 10 guys there.
Of course.
At 32 that we –
But there might be one of those 10 that's, wow, he shouldn't be there.
There might be.
And that's a good thing.
That's somebody that somebody wants to trade up to get.
Or you just run to the podium and say thanks.
You might.
I
just think I think in the grand scheme of things, I'm more interested in moving and acquiring more picks with that one.
Okay. Yeah, I'm open to both, but we're swimming the same way.
Because I think you do have more – and they'll take care of some of these holes in free agency.
Well, the other thing no one ever thinks about, too, is your roster isn't set the day the draft's over.
Right.
You still can add 3 or 4 quality players.
Absolutely.
Because people are still cutting guys to get the draft picks under there, and you have a little bit of
that's what they signed
over.
Ogunjobi right before training camp last year.
Right. When was Edmonds signed? Wasn't he right around the draft or the day before, the day
after? They signed
after?
KZ the day after the draft.
The day after, right. I mean, those are quality dudes.
Right.
So there's a lot
You got guys
time.
that played a lot of snaps for you after the draft.
You don't go to camp tomorrow.
Right.
So.
But what the Steelers have always liked to do is have those holes filled before they go into the draft.
And they're really good at that.
Yeah.
But the way these draft picks are set up is different than most years. Usually they have number 20 in the second round, number 20 in the third round. Now they have this desert
27 or, 57 and,
See, I look at this as a 5-pick draft, not a 7-pick draft. And if I could turn those 5-pick draft into 6 or 7 real picks, that would be great.
That's what I'm saying.
We all agree on that.
If I can, if I can turn 32 into 38, and then
and 46,
or 38
or,
and
whatever
117, whatever it works out to. I'm all in on that.
Yeah.
If I can turn my 5 picks into first top 120 into 6 picks in the top 130.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's in the cards.
This draft is deep enough,
and I think that's the place you want to shop.
That I'm interested.
Yeah. And again, who knows what the first 31 are? Who knows what the first 16 are? You might be in no man's land, but you might be. Boy, I like 6 of these guys.
But the other thing to think about with this, Matt, is that at 32, you'll know what everybody else has already done.
Oh, there's more information
in the first round.
Right.
So
the playoff team's already picked.
know that if that team ahead of you already took a cornerback, they're probably not going cornerback again in the first round or in the second round.
Right.
If they want to move up to that pick, they're not going to take another cornerback.
And going into the draft, every team, except for the very bad teams, will be narrowed down to 3 positions or so, and then by that time they'll be down to 2. So if they're trading up, they probably want this guy. Or
right.
I mean,
You'll have a pretty good idea who
right.
they want to come up. You can even ask. That doesn't mean they're going to tell you.
Right.
Well, who you coming up to get? They're probably not going to tell you. But
I always wondered if that happens or not on draft day trades. Because if I'll be like,
if there's a quarterback there, you know.
See, if I were the team trading up, I'll be like, I'll tell you as soon as you finalize the deal. Yeah. I'm not telling you before, but as soon as the deal's fine, I'm like, oh, I'm coming up for C.J. Stroud.
Well, that's so. When the Steelers made the trade, move back with Kansas City. Kansas City was pretty sure that the Steelers were going to take Larry Johnson, the running back.
Right, that's Troy year. Okay.
And the Steelers were locked in on Troy. Mm-hmm. They were coming up to take Troy.
Yeah. And I know for a fact they were very interested in Larry Johnson that year because I was actually next door and some people told me or saw the board.
But that's who Kansas City thought that they were trading up to get. And lo and behold, the Steelers were moving up to get Troy Polamalu, and Kansas City got Larry Johnson.
I hadn't thought of it from their angle, so they were thrilled.
Right.
I mean, looking back, you'd rather have Troy than Johnson, no matter what team you were. But at the time, the Chiefs were like, I got to move back, and I got my guy.
And you got your guy.
Right. And Johnson was a good player,
Yeah.
I mean,
he just wasn't Troy.
No.
In the Hall of Fame.
In the Hall of Fame, but right. No, the draft's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's there's always the intrigue part of this, but you have to kind of think these things through like you're playing chess.
Yeah. I was called to choose your own adventure books. Like, if we make this pick, we're down that road now. There's no going back.
Well, see, that's the other thing about this draft. So if you go defensive tackle in the first, let's say you take Brisset in the first with 17. Well, now you're out of the defensive tackle market.
Right.
Now you're probably going defensive back at 32 or offensive line.
I'd say better address a corner pretty quick then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because you do want to get one of those top guys.
And the world knows it.
And everybody else is in that same market.
Yeah. No, but if Brisset or whoever is clearly a big gap, like we were talking about with Tony, from the other D tackles, but the corners are all similar. Of course, you like some better than others. Go for it.
Yeah.
The Maryland corner might be my 4th guy.
He might be.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm taking him to 17.
So Mike Tomlin might know a little bit about the Maryland corner, too.
Yeah. Banks is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Dino Tomlin was there for the last 4 years.
Yep.
Before transferring to Boston College this year. So he would know a lot about
all kinds of insight on
that guy. So,
and I guess he'll test really well. And
yeah.
I liked what Tony said about it, and I've liked him all along, but he's starting to stand out as my 4.
He might run really well, too.
He might run really well.
And he's 6'2".
And he's 6'2".
Yeah.
Good player.
Yeah, there's lots of those guys available in this year's draft. You mentioned Cam Smith running well in this draft. That's the first time I've heard somebody thinking Cam Smith is going to run.
Yeah, I haven't heard much reports on that he's going to light it up or whatever. Yeah, he's been on these lists forever, but interesting. I don't know if I'm in at 17 with him, but I mean, if it were a trade down to 25, I'm interested.
Yeah, absolutely. Steeler fans, the Steelers media platforms are loaded with great Steelers Combine content all week long. Visit Steelers.com and the Steelers official mobile app to hear live and on-demand SNR audio content, exclusive one-on-one video interviews with key decision-makers, and daily editorial coverage. The team also has great throwback Combine workout highlights on current Steelers for you to check out. That's all this week on the Steelers media platforms. He is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on Steelers Nation Radio. We'll be back with more right after this. Lolley, he is Matt Williamson, and I am multitasking.
Yeah, all these times are coming in now,
the,
heights and weights and all sorts of stuff
NFL
going on.
Combine tracker here. Let's tracking all NFL Combine news. Let's check out what they've got on here.
This is a good time to
because as I can see on the TV all the way across the hall there, we don't have a TV close to us here. I see big guys running down there. So it looks like Texas defensive lineman Moro Ojomo ran a 5.12 unofficial.
That's good.
Penn State
big interior guy.
Penn State defensive lineman P.J. Mustafer ran a 5.45 40 unofficially. Kalijah Cansey came in at 4.78 unofficial.
Really good. I mean, for any D tackle, really good. And I wouldn't be shocked if he's even capable of better.
Yeah.
You know,
I want to see his 3-cone, too.
No, I'm sure they'll be great.
Yeah.
His jumps will be good. I mean, he's explosive get-off guy.
Baylor defensive lineman Siaki Ika, 5.45 unofficial.
Fine.
That doesn't bother me.
Right.
And he's a true nose.
Eater, right.
We talked a little bit earlier about Gervin Dexter out of Florida.
What did he do?
5 flat. Remember, he's 6'6".
Okay.
And we didn't have a weight for him, but I'm sure he was well over 300 pounds.
Max, are you happy with Gervin Dexter with a 5.0 flat? Yeah, it's pretty good, huh? I mean, he's 6'6"-ish or whatever. Yeah, it's pretty good. 5 flat. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Big defensive tackle there. Alabama defensive lineman DJ Dale at 5'3", unofficial.
Okay. I think he's more nose-ish.
Yeah. Keandre Coburn out of Texas, 5'2".
I don't know much about him, but I didn't realize there was 2 D tackles here from them.
Yeah, Gerard Clark from Coastal Carolina, 5'3", Brian Brisset.
What did he do?
4.93.
Nice. Very nice.
That's more than solid enough.
Yeah, that's more than checks the boxes.
Yeah.
You know,
I think that's right around where Cam was.
I bet. Yeah, I bet.
Again, I just keep so I'm going to call up Cam Hayward's
I was curious about
Combine stats.
Cam Hayward Combine.
See what we got here. It's Cam Hayward Combine. There we go. His prospect profile.
Yeah,
these are always fun to look at, too, because you get the 11-year-old picture of Cam now.
Yeah, and Zerline's right up usually is in there. Well, I don't know if he was doing 11 years ago or not.
Yeah,
but they'll tell you all his numbers.
Yeah, okay. So he came in at 6'5", 294.
Okay, Brisset was about that.
6'5", 298.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see here. They have looks like he did not run here, but he had a 30-inch vertical.
Remember back in those days, Ohio State's track was
super fast. So
legendary being fast.
None of the Ohio State guys ran
games. Right. Kind of forgot about that.
Yeah. Strength. Hayward is very strong with a great frame.
Yep.
Yeah, that checks it off. Quick off the ball, delivers a violent punch to jar offensive linemen, shows good hand technique to slip blocks.
Yep.
Okay?
Remained this case.
Plays with sound leverage and anchors effectively in the running game. Versatile athlete who can play multiple positions along the defensive line.
Yeah.
4-year starter and very durable.
Yeah.
Yep.
True. Yeah.
Weaknesses.
I remember some people, because times are different. I mean, that was, 12 years ago?
Yeah.
The versatility thing, not everyone looked at as a strength. You know, especially if you were a 4-3, was, do I really want to line him up at D tackle time after time?
Right.
Or is he athletic enough to be an edge and that benefit the Steelers?
Okay, here are his combine or his pro day results.
Okay.
Looking here, he was 294 at his pro day. Arm length, he did a 4.92.
Similar.
Almost identical.
Right. Very similar.
Almost identical. Weaknesses. Does not have the burst to consistently get after the quarterback or make plays from the backside.
I mean, he wasn't the twitchiest guy in the world. Right.
Plays with a narrow base at times and can be pushed out of the play.
Yeah, all these guys have stuff to work on, and I'm not saying he's right or wrong with the write-up, but he's obviously gotten better as a player since then.
Takes too long to recognize screens and draws and gets caught upfield too often. Well, he's fixed that. He's one of the best guys.
Yeah.
And
that absolutely could be a Ohio State scheme thing.
Yeah.
A lot of those big
just get upfield.
Schools just say deal with screens and draws and things like that on the way.
We get a bunch of athletes behind you. They'll run that guy down.
You know.
Yeah. And then finally, a bit inconsistent with his play.
Okay.
All right.
He's still growing, yeah.
Yeah. And the Steelers got him in late in the first round.
Yeah, in an excellent draft class.
Yeah, in one of the all-time great draft classes.
Right.
So if you look at the write-ups on Brisset, it's going to be they
are similar.
I mean, the body type is similar. Athleticism is going to be very similar.
40 time, it just happened is similar, right? We've been saying that all along, but it makes perfect sense. I mean, if you're looking for a mentor, could you ask for one better than Hayward?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Hey, kid, you got to run to the ball constantly. That kind of stuff. You can.
This is how you're a professional. This is how you get the most out of your abilities. This is how you deal with off-the-field stuff. This is how you deal with the community, all those things.
So I'm just looking here. Where is Broussais here on this chart? I'm looking up Lance Zierlein's right up on him this year.
They're not always out yet. I mean,
they're out.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Is every write-up out?
A lot of them are. They don't have them quite the way they usually do where they're ranking. So 6'5", 305. We came in at 298. They got his 4.93, a 171 10-yard split on that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the best I've ever heard, but it's good.
So
that must have just came out too.
Strength, broad but athletic build, plays instinctive football in tight quarters, processes blocking schemes and attacks with smart hands, takes long, loose strides to defeat reach blocks laterally, can withstand double teams and keep the gap snug, plays past the blocker with his eyes and focus, maintains his run, fits against move blocks, moving target as an interior rusher, stutter steps and strikes with altered pace,
nice.
Pocket pusher when he gets to jump. Weaknesses, college production does not jump off the page. Okay.
That's true.
Will slip the block and lose gap leverage at times. Again, that's something you can learn to not do. Range as a tackle maker is average. Rush approach is linear and unsophisticated. Unable to flip his hips and get skinny around the edge. Well, you're not going to play on the edge all that often.
Right. But they line him up there, so it's worth noting.
And then suffered an ACL tear September 2021, shoulder surgery in January of 2022.
So there's two things in that scouting report, and Lance does a great job, that are, one was a negative, one was a positive. One is he's excellent at looking past the blocker into the backfield. And what they mean by that is, okay, I'm engaged with this.
TJ's really good at that.
Cam's great at
it.
Great. Like, it's a Steeler trait for sure.
You're watching your blocker with you're not staring at the blocker like locked in on him. You're watching what's going on behind the blocker.
I have this 330-pound nasty human being that's unbelievably powerful trying to put me on my back, but I'm still looking at the quarterback in the backfield action.
I still know where the ball is going.
And I'm still hand fighting him, and I'm doing this too. Like, that's hard to do. But then the weakness was occasionally get slipped by the blocker. Well, because it's hard to do both. And you'll get better at it, of course. But it'll be against better people, of course.
Yeah.
So interesting. One knock I've heard on Broussais as a player, which I think is valid, is, and I guess probably the same was true at Cam at that age, was, yes, he's versatile. I can line him up at a 5 technique, a 3 technique, a 4 technique. I mean, everywhere.
I can put him at 0.
Everything. What's his best, though?
Yeah.
Like there's a little bit of jack of all trades, master of none. But a lot of it also is late of his career. He was injured and dealing with off the field.
Well, the other thing that Clemson does a lot of, Matt, and is this something that's bad for him or good for him? They run a lot of games up front.
Right, and he's going to often be the first guy in, bring 2
take
to me,
it 2 with you,
so
and then Murphy comes around the end.
Exactly, because I'm just freeing up the athlete.
But that's going to hurt the production.
Big time.
Yeah.
But, like, Cam's awesome at it.
Cam's great at it,
Right. I'm just going to go in and cause a mess. I'm trying to cause a 3-car pile up.
I'm causing the pile up and allowing the tow truck driver to come in around and get
the Lamborghini to come in. Right. Yeah, exactly. So, no, I mean, it all fits. It all fits. I just hope the medicals don't hurt him.
Yeah. So, that's interesting as we continue to get these done. Let's look at some more here. What else we got? Broussais, we got Keanu Benton, 5'13". That's a good time for him.
Good, yeah.
That's a good time for him.
I think he's a round 2 player.
Yeah.
Might be there for the 3rd Steeler pick. I'm not taking him at 32, I don't think, though.
Yeah, these are just invites here after that. Let's see if we
have to refresh
this page.
So this Twitter account isn't doing heights and weights. They're just giving us time.
They're giving us what's happening right now on the field.
Good. Okay.
So,
that's what we want.
We got Coburn's second run was 5.27 after he did a 5.26, so he's consistent there, pretty consistent there. Gerard Clark, 5.30 with his second one.
I know people like him. I need to do more homework on him.
Yeah.
There's some good prospects out there for him.
Looks like – what's going on here with that?
Yeah, boy.
I didn't turn us off here, did I?
Oh, come on. Did you lose internet again?
I'm just looking here. I don't know what I did there. But anyways, let's see here. Breesy with his second run, 4.93. So he's 4.93 both times.
Boom.
That's what you want. You're
Check
done.
the box. I doubt he runs at his pro day then. I would be happy with that, I think. Just don't run at your pro day.
Yep, absolutely. Keanu Benton, 5.16 with his second run after a 5.13. The first time through, Cameron Benton from Mississippi State. Cameron Benton, I should say, 5.18.
Okay.
Still was a 4.92.
You'll notice, folks, all these people's last names are at the top of the alphabet.
Yeah.
Because that's their position group.
Dante Still from West Virginia, 4.92, Wes. There you go.
Huh.
It's good time for him.
His last name's not at the top of the alphabet.
It is not. Arizona State defensive lineman Nesta Jade Silvera, 5.21. Oklahoma, Jalen Redmond, 4.85.
I know people are kind of excited about him, too.
Yeah.
I've heard a little bit of mid-round buzz.
Yeah. So Zach Pickens, we already got that one. So we're getting through some of these.
What did Pickens run? Sorry, you just refreshed.
I just refreshed.
That timing was brutal. Whatever. Don't worry about it. We'll find it.
Pickens, where was he at? Zach Pickens, 4.96.
Okay. I think under 5.0 is happy. Good for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So, big guys that can run. Maybe not to the level of the freak show that was there last year.
No. And I wonder, since I don't know if you and I have talked about this since we've been here, but remember the track was incredibly fast last year. It was a new track.
Traditionally, though, this has always been a slower track.
Yes. Most people do better at their pro day. And then it quickly got out with the first group or two, like, wow, this new turf that Indianapolis put down, you better run.
Yeah.
So now it's year 2 of that turf. Is that still true, or is it slower than it was a year ago? I have no clue.
But that's the great thing about the Combine, Matt, is that everybody's running on the same track.
Right.
As opposed to going to Ohio State and running on the fast track there, and everybody goes, well, yeah, he ran a 4.26 at Ohio State, so add a tenth of a second to that. That's how fast he is.
And Max mentioned it when he came out. He said, I forget exactly how he said it, but he said, I had somewhat of a hamstring at the Combine. I decided not to run. I was just going to do it on my track. Great. And that makes perfect sense. But you only have 2 opportunities. And he's like, so I did run at Florida, but it poured the night before on an outdoor track. And I couldn't have projected that, and I still have to run no matter what. So if you at least have one in the books, you could wake up that morning of your pro day and be like, I feel terrible. I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Or I wasn't happy with my run here. I'm going to give it another shot.
You're limiting your opportunities.
Right. There's only 2 cracks, and you threw 1 crack away.
Yeah. So, I think
running here should always be the case if I was an agent.
Yeah. Unless you're one of those top guys and you just don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm. But put one on the books and go from there.
Yeah. Jomo did 5.23 with the second one. That was slower. Mustafa did 5.48. That was a little bit slower.
Okay.
Cansey with the second one, 4.73.
Nice.
After 4.78 the first
he's
time.
happy with his day then.
Yeah, that's
6-1 and in the mid 4.7s. Good for him.
Good for him.
I think he's a first-round pick.
I think when it's all said and done, somebody's going to take him there.
Yeah. I look at playoff teams that think, okay, I don't need him for 70 snaps. I have a pretty good D-line, but I can use him for 40.
So
especially when we're winning.
The comp, because he went to Pitt, people say, it's Aaron Donald. That's not
terrible.
fair.
Right.
But Ed Oliver from Buffalo, on the other hand, who was an undersized defensive tackle who was a productive.
That's a better pick.
Sack
he was the 9th pick in the draft.
Yeah.
I remember the world went crazy when he ran like a 4.8 flat because D tackles weren't doing that then. He's been a little bit under. I mean,
that's a better
small.
comp, though.
It's a better comp.
Yeah,
because he is that small. These are guys that are like 280 or less.
But he gives you a little something there. There's some.
Oh, he's done good things.
Yeah.
I don't know if the Bills are thrilled that they used a top 10 pick on him.
That's the thing. But if you use the if you use the 25th,
right?
25th pick in the draft on him, you're happy.
Yeah, with Ed Oliver, no doubt. That's a good comp.
Gervin Dexter's second one, 4.93.
Even better. Nice.
Yeah, that's good for him.
I bet he's on the Steeler radar. It took me way too long this week to ask Starks about him as a Florida guy.
Yeah.
He's a perfect one, too, to put under Cam's wing.
Yeah. DJ Dale was 5.34 the second time around. Coburn, 5.27. Jared Clark, 5.30 the second time around. So, some of these guys are
learning more and more about these guys.
Yeah. So, let's see if we got any new ones here. Jalen Raymond, who did a 4.85 the first time, did a 4.86 the second time.
Okay. Who's Jalen Raymond?
He's from Oklahoma.
Okay. Yeah.
Zach Pickens, his second time around, 4.98, so he was under 5 both times. That's good for him.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think he's a mid-round guy.
So, these guys are starting to check off some of the boxes here.
We're getting a little more news around the league, too. I've heard a couple buzz, like The Giants and Daniel Jones are super far away. The Giants and Saquon are super close. Evan Ingram got the franchise tag today. So there's non-combine news happening right now, too. And I think there'll be more and more in the next day or two.
Absolutely. And you can hear it all here on Steelers Nation Radio. And, of course, you can watch us on the Steelers YouTube channel. We're here from 2 to 4 each day. This will be our last one on the YouTube channel. So we're doing 3 shows on the YouTube channel because, that's just the way it is.
That's the way we're doing it.
That's the way we're doing it. And Gerard's got to get back to Pittsburgh. That's the big part of this. But you can also get all of our other programming on demand where you listen to your favorite podcast. This week, of course, you can watch on the Steelers YouTube channel, as well as see all the other great videos on the YouTube channel that the Steelers put up there, including
Steelers.com's hopping this week.
Oh, it's unbelievable!
It out.
As it should be. But you can do that. Everything's here live. This show will be up on there tonight, and you can check out the previous combines. Go watch T.J. Watt's workouts, or go watch Alex Highsmith's workouts, or go back and watch that Cam Hayward workout.
Is it out there?
Some of those guys that the previous guys that have come through the program and done this before. Always fun to watch that stuff and look and see what the guy looked like then and what he looks like now.
Yeah, and realize you're not drafting finished products here.
No,
he doesn't do this well. Well, he might in 2 years.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's just the way. That's the natural progression there. He is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on Steelers Nation Radio. We'll be back with more to finish up the show right after this. I am Dale Lolley. He is Matt Williamson. And Steeler fans, the Steeler media platforms are loaded with great Steelers Combine content all week long. Visit Steelers.com and the Steelers official mobile app to hear live and on-demand SNR audio content, exclusive one-on-one video interviews with key decision makers, and daily editorial coverage, which as soon as we're done here, I will go back and write.
Yep.
The team also has great throwback Combine workout highlights on current Steelers for you to check out. That's all on the Steelers media platforms. Check those out. And, Matt, one of the things that when we were talking with Tony Pauline, everybody I talk to loves Brian Branch.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody loves Brian Branch.
I can't remember if it was on the air or not, but you kind of subtly mentioned it to Greg Cosell, and he's like, oh, that's a really good player. And then we kind of subtly mentioned it to Tony. He's like, oh, I like Brian Branch. He's my 9th-ranked player. Yeah, like the guys that have really grind into it, no one says anything bad about them.
I think some people, I think the media in general are kind of late to the party on that. Like,
seems that way. I mean, you would think a Bama guy that's high profile, but it also gets a little boring at Bama. Like, oh, they got another
Bama defensive back,
and Saban loves him, and he doesn't have anything wrong with him, and blah blah. And I don't know that he'll blow the doors off with testing. Like that's not his claim to fame. And he's on a 42-inch vertical or run a 4.2. I don't care.
I hope he doesn't.
I hope he doesn't. Right. And you do see, like Tony mentioned, he's like, I mocked him to the Jets, and there's a lot of potential. A guy like that which is one of the reasons you've been a proponent.
I think he's
of
the
him.
double.
He's a double, right?
Yeah.
And so many teams could use that. Like, well, we'll just settle's the wrong word, but we'll just take Brian Branch here. The number one position we were after didn't work out, so we'll take him, and because we like him a lot, and he's really good.
Yeah. So that's just me. Maybe we'll see how NFL teams feel about that. I know when I was doing the show earlier with Jerry Dulac, he likes Jair out of Penn State.
I do too.
Which I mean,
they're a different level.
Right. But Jerry thinks that Jair Brown will be the number one safety, and I'm like, I don't know about that, Jerry.
No, I mean, if we're calling Branch a safety, he's going ahead of Brown. I have no doubt in my mind. Now, this is going to be your nemesis, though. Breesy. Both killer bees are on the board.
Ooh, that's tough.
I know.
So in that instance.
And there is another position. They're clearly your two top.
They're two top, and both are there.
Yes.
I'd probably take the defensive lineman.
I would too, just because of position scarcity, and I kind of think a safety slot is a bit more of a luxury than a D lineman.
I mean, if that's the case, then I have to take Sidney Brown in the second round.
Third, or maybe you don't even need a safety. You might already have one, Matt.
So I'm listening to Sidney Brown since I brought him up from Illinois, and one of the questions to him today was, well, a lot of people compare you to Troy Polamalu.
It's a little rough. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So now we're going to compare, hit this guy to. I mean, that's tough.
Oh, it's brutal. I mean, I always make the joke, like, who's he remind you of? Lawrence Taylor, Jim Brown.
It's kind of so. It's like the thing when people talk about, well, in another lifetime I was this. They never pick I was a peasant in the village. It's always I was Marie Antoinette in another life.
Yeah,
or, whatever it may be.
That got stepped on.
Yeah, I was the king of France.
Right. So good. Yeah, pattern your game after Troy Paul. And actually, Branch mentioned Troy and Cam Chancellor on the podium too. I'm all for players looking at great players,
right?
Or Pickett looking at Burrow and say, I can do some of those things.
Yeah.
I'm going to pattern my game after him. Sure. But for any of us to say –
to comp them to those guys.
Right. Like I'm high on myself
tough.
Too, but come on, man. Right? If you're not as good as Troy, then you were a bust. Yeah.
Yeah. That's just –
Brown had a great Senior Bowl, though. I think he'd fit in really well with the Steelers. But I think he's a third. Maybe the late second.
I think he could be a second.
Yeah, and probably will test well.
Yeah.
He's rocked up and
high
character.
And can play in the slot, can play in the box, can play deep. There's a lot of those guys this year.
Yeah.
Because that's what the college game's asking them to do.
Has he been pretty proficient in the slot?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure on that. I know he did some of it at Senior Bowl, but okay, that's interesting. That boosts his stock a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, the same thing with Brown. Penn State played him in the, some in the slot. So, I mean, that's kind of what you're looking for.
Branch isn't the only one.
Right.
And as is the case with
I just think Branch is
way better than all those guys.
Yeah, his ability to blitz, his ability to play safety like a corner, as Tony said.
Right. He said you're not going to lose anything. That's a great way of putting it. As opposed, but he's still a safety. I mean, he's still playing the run or blitzing or whatever, taking on guards or So I also put a lot of stock in him being Saban's guy.
Yeah.
That's high praise from that organization, that head coach, that guy's defensive background. I mean, anyone can bust. I mean, there's been he's got no chance of busting. Anyone can bust.
Right.
But
that's just a reality.
It's just a lot of trampolines to bounce back from if you go down. You know what I mean? For all those things. So no, I'm high on them too.
Does it mean more in the scouting world for a guy to be a multi-year starter at a place like Bama, as opposed to being a 4-year starter at Texas U or Texas Directional U?
See, I think it's unfair. I'm not avoiding your question, but I think it's unfair if you hold not being a multi-year starter.
Yeah.
If you're at Georgia, if you're at Bama. I love Pitt, but I pick on them because they're local.
Go ahead.
But you should probably be more than a 1-year starter at Pitt or most schools. But here's a better example. When we filled out a scouting report for the Browns, which was stolen directly from Ozzie Newsome's Ravens, Phil Savage, no one made any bones about it. The first thing you wrote on that scouting report, 2-year starter, or 2.5-year starter, or 1-year starter but was used on third downs the year before, and then the good scouts would explain that. And say,
why was he
1-year starter at Bama, but Will Anderson was above him before, or
but was behind Lawrence Taylor,
right? Or I think the case with Sanders, who's at Arkansas, was an edge rusher at Bama, but transferred because Will Anderson and whoever next year's first-round pick were there, so he went to Arkansas and played more. So explain it. There's context involved with all those things. Right. But to your point, 2-year starter at Bama, then you go, oh, this guy should be a high pick. Yeah. No matter what, like 2-year starter Bama, high pick.
Yeah, because he was there with a bunch of other 5-star recruits, and he was the best of those guys. So then how does a guy like a Levi Wallace fall through the cracks?
How many years did he start?
Was a walk-on at Alabama, was a 2-year starter at Alabama.
He was a 2-year starter.
And then doesn't get drafted.
I remember he didn't test great.
But he
is skinny.
Multi-year starter at Alabama.
At a stud school. That's a great question. And he didn't get drafted, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That is crazy. And he's gone on to have a great career. And he's overcome odds as an undrafted, as a walk-on. Interesting. Yeah, that's surprising because those guys never get overlooked.
Right. You're playing at Alabama. You won a national championship, and you were a starter on a national championship
No
team.
scout didn't go in there.
Right.
And he's on the list. I mean,
every NFL GM's probably at the national championship game watching that.
And everyone watched the game on all 22 without question, of course. Right.
That boggles my mind that he somehow was a walk-on at the most prestigious when they were winning national championships. He was a walk-on.
Right.
Earned his scholarship. Was a starter in a secondary that Marlon Humphrey and Minka Fitzpatrick. He's starting along next to those guys and then doesn't get drafted.
I mean, I would bet when teams game planned for Bama, they were like, "Oh, this is a nightmare." Of course, this defense. What do we do? I guess we'll pick on Wallace. I mean, I'm guessing it was probably a lot of the game planning.
We're not even going to try to throw the ball
because we don't want to throw at that guy. We don't want to throw at that guy. So on 3rd and 8, let's go his direction. But I don't recall him allowing a lot of production or, being the weak link, by any means. They won national championship.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm trying to explain it away.
I don't get it. I mean, again, I think you look
it's easy to miss on guys.
You look at production, and I get his body type, but he's got the long arms, and he's got everything that you look for in a cornerback.
And he doesn't play weak.
Right. I mean, he's a good tackler on the edge, And
I assume he did this at Bama, but I think he was a pretty good special teamer, too.
Yeah,
I mean, he has a special team mentality, running down on punts and things like that. I don't know. That's a good question.
It's just baffling to me. So guys do get overlooked in this process
all the time.
Yeah,
which is really important with the undrafted group. If you give those guys a fair shake, and some teams do more than others, I think the Steelers have proven to be really good at that. Those guys you bring in are important because they're going to get a lot of your assistant coach's time.
Well, and to my point, we were talking about this in the first segment with Max. I was talking about this with Max and Jerry. Because this draft is so deep at so many positions, I think there's going to be some really good undrafted free agents this year.
Yeah, and maybe those 2 7ths are a little more valuable than they used to be. Because it's a little bit deeper group.
You may be able to get a tight end that in most years would be a 5th-round draft pick.
That's a perfect position.
And this year he goes undrafted because, again, how many teams are going to take tight ends in the draft?
As I say, if there's 32 teams, how many are truly top 3 or 4 needs are tight end.
Yeah.
And the Steelers probably aren't even one of them either.
Yeah.
Maybe half the league, maybe.
Yeah.
And so some of them will get shut out. And if there's as many prospects as our team's looking for them, they're not going to match up completely.
Right.
So I think that's a perfect position. The one thing I've noticed about this draft too is there's a lot of what used to be overaged guys too. Boy, I like this guy.
He's already 25.
He's already 25, and it's back to the BYU conversation. If he's 25 playing against 20-year-olds, he should be really good.
And that was a knock on Pickett last year.
Quarterback's
different.
Yeah, quarterback I don't care because I don't think it shortens their NFL life. Sure, he was better as a 25-year-old than a 24-year-old at Pitt or whatever it was.
He was 23 and turning 24.
So that certainly benefited him, and it was probably part of his Pitt breakout. But these overage guys, to me, are a bit of a red flag in that you should be better than the 19-year-old you're playing against.
And I think with the NIL stuff, I think we saw fewer underclassmen declare this year. Because they can stay in school and make.
Someone last night said that definitely is true.
Yeah.
There was fewer than ever. So NIL, all the transfers, COVID, super seniors. These last 2 classes have been really weird.
The
really
transfer
weird.
stuff has been. I mean, just talking with Christian Gonzalez, for example, earlier today. He was initially a Purdue recruit.
He committed to Purdue?
Yeah, ended up going to Colorado instead, then transfers after 2 years at Colorado to Oregon, and now he's in the draft.
Yeah.
So
it's a lot of change.
How do you look at that?
Not to mention who vouches for you at the schools.
That's
too.
the other thing.
Of course, your latest school was going to tell you, but they only knew him for a year. They didn't recruit him when he was 17 years old.
Yeah, they haven't known him since
Right. That's strange. I mean, that's one of my favorite parts of being at Pitt was I met this kid when he came to camp when he was 16. You recruit him. He finally commits. You hug him. Congratulations. His family's thrilled. Everyone's wearing Pitt gear. You bring him here, and he quickly realizes we don't love you as much as you said.
All right, meathead. All that stuff we told you before.
And then 3 years later, you're looking at him. He put on 20 pounds. He's getting drafted. It's like, good for you. What a great story, But that doesn't happen anymore.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough, and, I think it makes scouting more difficult.
Yeah, I think so, too.
If
you have this great in at a school, and that the person tells you, yeah, we love him. He played great, but I've only known the kid for a year or 8 months.
Or whatever, do you call that guy up? Well, he was here, but then he transferred. Why did he transfer?
Yeah, I mean,
what happened?
And now I'm mad at him too.
Yeah. Now, do you trust that? Do you trust that information that you're getting from that guy? Because he left us. We broke up.
Yeah, right. I'm not suggesting Pitt people would bash Addison. I have no clue if they would or not, but they're not going to be as warm and fuzzy with him as they was before you left.
Yeah, you're not going to get the same love.
That's interesting. I mean, just these last 2 years, I'd love to talk to a bunch of scouts and be like, how's the world changed in these 2 years? Or post-COVID, I guess.
Yeah.
Because it definitely has.
Well, the scouting itself has changed.
Oh, yeah.
The COVID stuff changed scouting dramatically because you couldn't have the personal contact.
In terms of what you were allowed to do as a scout.
Right.
I'm even talking about 6-year seniors and stuff like that, too. It never existed.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask Omar Khan about that, and it just completely slipped my mind when we were on the air. How that affects the draft process. I would think, if you're looking at apples to apples and you've got a 24-year-old prospect and you're comparing him to a 21-year-old prospect and it's close or the same, you take the younger guy.
You definitely take the younger guy.
Yeah.
Because he'll be more valuable after his first contract. And he did it. He probably is more developing to do.
Right. There's still more meat on the bone there.
Yeah.
The Steelers have traditionally taken those younger guys.
Of course.
When you're picking 20 down, you're taking guys more based on what you're projecting they're going to be in 3 years.
Yeah.
As opposed to if you're drafting in the top 10.
Right.
Those guys, what they are right now.
If you're a playoff team and you don't need him, and I can work him in slow, but he's going to be more valuable after contract 1 than the guy that's 3 years older than him, which is almost always the case.
Yeah.
Just as we investigate free agency now, there'll be a lot of red flags. Yeah, but he's already 28. After his first contract, it's like, okay, well, maybe here's a 2-year deal, not a 3-year deal, or whatever,
yeah.
right? And less money.
It affects that long-term prognostication with that. That's why, a guy like James Daniels was so attractive last year in free agent. He's still 24, but he's already spent 4 years in the league.
And if you're from the player's perspective, you have a chance to sign 3 legit contracts, right? Your rookie deal plus 2 good ones, and then maybe the 1-year deals after that, like everybody else.
So it's interesting.
It's a big deal.
It's all part of the chess game that's being played here, putting that puzzle together as you get through the draft. But, Matt, that's going to do it for our show today and for our shows here on YouTube. We do appreciate if you've been watching these
fun
shows.
Wrinkle, yeah.
Yeah, we like this. This was fun. Maybe we'll do this again. Who knows? We'll see where Gerard's over there shaking his head. Gerard doesn't want to do this anymore. But, hey, it's been fun. We've enjoyed doing this video portion of this as well. And, of course, we will be back tomorrow on Steelers Nation Radio. That will be our final day of all of draft coverage here. Again, starting at 9 a.m. with Wesley Euler and taking us all the way through to 4 o'clock with Matt and myself. But that's going to do it for our show today. So, for my partner Matt Williamson, for CJ back in studio keeping us on the air, I am Dale Lolley. We thank you for listening to this edition of The Drive on Steelers Nation Radio.